Hello, 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 and welcome to episode 3 of the Comfort Zone series. I wanted to do this episode a little bit different, so please let me know what you guys thought. So today, before anything, I just kind of wanted to put out a little disclaimer. We're going to be talking about some emotional topics. When I was doing my research for what we're going to talk about, a lot of memories came up that I didn't necessarily think would have had effect on me growing up into my adulthood, or maybe something happened to me while I was a teenager and I forgot about it, and I thought I forgot about it. But now looking back, it affected me a lot deeper than I realized. So, I'm not a therapist yet. I'm not a doctor. Hopefully, maybe one day. That'd be really cool. So, I'm just a person, and I just want to share some information with you that has really helped me open my eyes and, in a sense, evolve in a lot of ways and help me further in this little journey we call life. So this is part 1 of 2, and I'll get into what part 2 is going to be about at the end of this video, but I want to go ahead and jump right in. I want to talk about codependency. Now, in my last 2 videos, we've been talking about the notion of our comfort zone and how being trapped inside of a comfort zone might be stopping us from progressing in ways that we know we need to, spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally, whatever it be. Now, we went on along and made a timeline of all the times throughout our childhood or into adulthood or heck in the last week that we felt we had stepped outside of our comfort zone. And if you haven't had a chance to do that, I highly, highly recommend doing that because it's very eye-opening in a lot of ways. And it kind of just helps with further understanding the comfort zone, but also further understanding how to help evolve as a human ourselves. So, a lot of us seem to run into a similar problem. I'm going to grab myself some water. I'm nervous. And sorry if you can hear my cat purring in the background. But a lot of us find ourselves running into a similar problem, all right? We are in an unhealthy relationship. This unhealthy relationship may or may not turn toxic, but regardless of the fact, we are in a very unhealthy relationship. That can be with anybody, our parents, our boyfriend or girlfriend. Maybe we have somebody that won't leave us alone. Maybe it's our spouse who you might be married to. But regardless, you give, you love, and sometimes you might get something in return, but a lot of the times you just feel like you're not getting anything back. Nothing is being reciprocated, no matter how hard you try. But no matter how hard we try, no matter how much you may realize that this situation is unhealthy, you need to place yourself in a better environment so you could further move forward. No matter what, we stay stuck. We feel as though we can't leave, or a part of us doesn't want to leave. It might be really bad one second, but then it gets really good in another second. But we might not understand why this is. Maybe we're afraid to be alone. Maybe we are financially dependent on somebody. Regardless of the fact, if you turn to the books, or if you turn to people for advice, or if you even turn to the internet, a lot of the times you might pop up on a word called codependency. Or heck, maybe you've heard that word before. I mean, I have personally heard it myself when I was young, into even sometimes in my adulthood, I have heard that I am codependent or I have codependent tendencies. And at first I didn't understand why. Sometimes I was like, okay, well, maybe that's just the way I am. I don't know why I am this way. I feel like I can't do anything about it. It might be similar to the situation where you feel like you can't leave the relationship that you're in. No matter how unhealthy it is, you still find something to latch onto. You still stay and you still put up with it. So when I wanted to further research codependency, because I know for a fact, whether we want to accept it or not, that may be a very, very good reason a lot of us find ourselves not being able to step outside of our comfort zone or further evolve. So I started running into a couple problems with researching codependency. I started finding that it's a lot deeper than just a basically a characteristic, right? I started to find a new definition of what being codependent means because my old definition wasn't working. So I really hope what I have learned is going to help you. So I came across the term self-love deficiency. And wow, did that really open my eyes to a lot of things. So first off, I want to start by sharing a little list of characteristics that might be common for being codependent or having self-love deficiency issues. So I read an article by Patrick D'Amico, and he got a lot of his help, and as did I, from a doctor named Ross Rosenberg, who I'm going to get into deeper context with in a second. But the list of noticeable characteristics that I wanted to write down, I think would really help you guys also maybe see if you are codependent or suffer from self-love deficiency. You might have a fear of being abandoned or alone. You feel guilty with assertion. You are always taking responsibility for the actions of others. Or you might feel the need to really be in control, not necessarily in a negative aspect, but you just really need control over the situations and what's going on. You might need a lot of approval from others. You do anything you can to hold on to a relationship. You might find yourself getting angry a lot or having anger bursts, or the inability to adapt to change. You might have problems with intimacy, or you might notice that you find yourself being around a lot of relationships that have lying or poor communication, and it's really evident for you. So, putting down that list of characteristics, I was like, all right, I can almost resonate with every single one of those bullet points. So, how the heck did I get here? So, if you might be asking yourself the same question, I want to go a little bit deeper. So this is where Dr. Ross Rosenberg's perspective really helped me understand why I find myself being codependent and why I might find myself having a strong lack of self-love. Because I thought I was very confident. I thought I loved myself dearly. But, the more you kind of clear off a pathway, the more you realize how long and far it goes and how deep even you really are. So it starts out kind of like a timeline. Remember, we did the timeline from when we were a child to when we stepped outside of our comfort zone. We can do the same thing now. So we'll make a new timeline. We can either start from when we were a child, or we can start from last week. We can start from whenever we feel comfortable. But we need to figure out the root cause of what is going on, because from what I'm seeing and from what I feel, codependency is just a symptom of something that is a lot deeper. So I want to get to the root cause, because if you think about it, if you just have a symptom, right? Say you have an infection and you don't even take time to clean the infection, you just slap a Band-Aid over it. Well, trying to slap a Band-Aid over being codependent is going to be the same exact thing. We need to get to the deeper cleaning and healing of the trauma and of the wound, okay? So we need to make a timeline of when we have experienced attachment trauma, okay? I can remember how hard it was for me to leave my mom, because growing up, my parents had a divorce. I don't really remember it, but long story short, I don't remember not being able to ever leave my mom's side. I had a very, very hard time with that. So, maybe you can remember something when you were a kid. Maybe, you had an issue with a teacher, an issue with, an animal, a brother, a sister. But with Ross Rosenberg's perspective, something dysfunctional happens within maybe the family or the environment that you are around when you are younger, or whenever this attachment trauma happened. And because we might be aware of the trauma when it's happening, or the child may be unaware of the trauma when it's happening because of how young and innocent the child's mind are, a lot of repression might take case, okay? And that might lead to feeling very vulnerable, or the need to always please something. But because we, or children when we were younger, are unable to build a positive definition, our views become distorted. And that happening at a very young age, you guys, and that's why I said this timeline from seeing when things happen when we were younger, it really opens your eyes. And maybe that may have led to some problems feeling loved or feeling worthy of being loved, okay? So then that might stumble down into a child or an adult or even a teenager starting to self-medicate themselves because they don't understand this emptiness that's inside, this either lack of love, this lack of feeling love, this notice that it's not being reciprocated. So they start trying to find people who are similar to how their parents treated them. And I think you guys may have heard that theory before. I know I have heard it before where, oh my God, you want somebody who's just like your dad and you may not even realize it, or you just lean towards people who are like your parents. Ross Rosenberg puts that into connection with this. And so the attachment trauma we experienced as a child leads to some core shame. And because everybody is unique and everybody is different, everybody's beliefs and their distorted views can be completely different from one another. So that's why I think this is so deep, and it's so important to learn about self-love now that I'm reading this at such a young age. But it's never too late to start. So with these distorted beliefs, right, it can lead to loneliness. And then we become addicted to the feeling of wanting to be loved, right? And then that ultimately leads to self-love deficiency, or having this, what may seem like a disorder within us that is just a lack of self-love. So my only problem with it, it's not necessarily a problem, but the only sort of thing I want to change, but I don't know if this completely contradicts what Ross Rosenberg thinks. But I feel like, and this is just my little input, I feel like attachment trauma can happen at any time or any day. I strongly believe that there are a lot of things that happen at our childhood, but I do believe that people who may have not experienced dysfunction within the family when they were younger, they may have not experienced a narcissistic parent, I still believe that they can develop self-love deficiency disorder. And this is why I also wanted to make this into a 2-part talk, because I think my input brought me to something that has to do with codependency, has to do with self-love deficit disorder, but goes a little bit deeper and can be a little bit more personal, just pinpoint it personally. So what the heck do we do with this, right? All right, I get that I have self-love deficiency disorder. I get that I may have had a bunch of trauma happen to me as a child. I repressed it. That led to me having distorted beliefs. That led to me feeling very lonely in life. Maybe, you became addicted to a substance. You became addicted to a person. But you hit a point of attachment, of addiction, where you just need that release, that itch. You just want to touch that loneliness and get it away. But then you might become attracted to some narcissists. You might be asking, okay, Sarah, okay, now what? Now what? And how the hell do you help this? So remember how I compared this to having a wound that is deep and has an infection, and you can't just slap a Band-Aid on it and think that it's going to get fixed? Well, I want to compare the cure to having self-love deficiency to a flower. And it's about self-love abundance. And what that means is being courageous enough to take out the biggest fight of your life. What is holding you back in this comfort zone? Okay? If it's codependency, if it's self-love deficiency disorder, if it's being codependent on a relationship or a person, we need to take out that fight, okay? So, how does that happen? Well, we need to address the root cause. This is where we need to safely explore traumas that may have happened to us. We need to accept them, feel them emotionally, and we need to let them go. And that's kind of why I wanted to put that little disclaimer in the beginning, because I personally, I don't see a therapist right now. I am doing a lot of my self-learning and self-educating alone. So when I start digging into the depths of my traumas as a child, it might bring up some really sad memories. And, that's why I want you to safely explore these and choose how you choose to go about it. Because once that happens, you guys, self-love starts coming. Why? Because we have started to get deep into the roots of what's going on. We're not just sitting there and saying, okay, I'm 20 years old, I'm stuck with a guy who I really want to leave. No, it's saying, what happened to me as a child that may have led to what's happening right now? What did I experience when I was younger that may have led to me having distorted views on myself, that made me unable to love myself? So now I'm in a relationship where I don't feel loved myself, Maybe you love the heck out of another person, but like I said, it's not happening. Nothing's being reciprocated. So once you start addressing the root problems and you start gaining some self-love for yourself, you start feeling comfortable in your own skin. And once you start feeling comfortable in your own skin, you can feel peace. You feel at peace. You no longer feel at that level where you feel that scratch for that addiction because you're at peace and you feel comfortable. You don't have something that you feel is empty. You don't have that lack of self-love within yourself to where you feel like no matter how much love and you get, you don't have enough respect or understanding for yourself to know when you're not getting it back. And it might not just be because of something that's happening right now. It might be because of something that happened a very long time ago that led to self-love deficiency, that then led to you being codependent as an adult because the wounds we had as a child, we never healed. That's why I think it's so crazy to sit down and actually write these things down, to see on the piece of paper, damn, I've been through a lot, and maybe I haven't sat down and gone through my traumas, and that's why I feel so off right now. Maybe that's what's causing my anxiety and my depression or my just chaotic lifestyle. We haven't addressed the root causes. So once you start feeling comfortable in your own skin, you need to have a new set of rules. Rules and expectations, right? Because you expect the same from others as you do from within yourself, right? So think about it. If you lack self-love, it's no surprise that you would be with somebody who lacks love or show love for you because you're expecting the same from others that you have within yourself. So if you have peace and self-love, you expect that to reciprocate. You need reciprocity in your life, right? And once you have that around you, your environment helps feed you. So that's where self-love abundancy comes around because you no longer have room for these people who don't have the same self-love, who lack self-love. And it's going to take a lot of time to address these root causes. But think about it. Once you have a strong foundation, just like with a house, just like with a garden, you got to have stepping stones in your foundation, you guys. So write down your stepping stones. Those stepping stones are all of the trauma that you experienced. But because you took that stepping stone and you cleansed it, you purified it under the moon, you let the rain hit it, you let it dry, you loved it, and you accepted them, then you could throw them into your garden, and your roots have even a stronger foundation once you start planting some seeds of self-love. So when you address the roots of your trauma and the roots of your garden, you have a strong foundation. You can move up to the next level, which is growing self-love. So then you take some seeds of self-love, you put them in the garden. But what happens? You need to tend to that. We've talked about this, you guys. We know the power of a seed. If we tend to it, what starts to grow? Our stem of peace, our comfortability in our own skin. The reciprocity that comes down is the wind that's around us that helps us get stronger. It's the sunlight above us that helps us grow. It's the water that falls on us that may hurt for the second, the tears that fall that might hurt for a second, but it's reciprocity. It's all going to help. With that, what happens once the flower blooms? It's self-love. And you're able to go about your environment releasing the same self-love abundance to others because you've done it yourself. You went through the cycle of addressing everything. You started to have self-love. You started to feel peace within. You started to feel it reciprocate around your environment because you started weeding out the weeds. You started cleansing the things that hurt you. You know? So maybe codependency isn't the problem. Maybe even self-love deficiency isn't the problem. It's what's caused it. So if you think about it, like I said, with how Ross Rosenberg put these at the pyramid, it's not what's at the top of the pyramid. With, like we said, without the negative part of the top of the pyramid, that was where self-love deficiency is and where codependency falls. With the attachment trauma way at the bottom, distorted beliefs, and the loneliness and the addiction, the problem's not with the top. It's not with the self-love deficiency. It's with the very bottom. So if we start addressing the root of all of this and understand that, hey, growing up, I had distorted beliefs, and now it's carrying off into what's happening now in my present-day relationships, right? It all starts to kind of make sense. When I started doing this research, Ross Rosenberg is a very, very, very mind-opening doctor, and I really recommend you look deeper into him. Also, if you want a deeper understanding on codependency, and if maybe my explanation wasn't that well. When I started researching self-love deficiency disorder, something that can contribute to codependency issues and having that self-love deficiency issue can be experiencing a childhood where there was substances in the household, whether that be alcohol or whether that be another substance, that can affect a child into their adulthood more than somebody who doesn't experience that. And I know that's kind of, okay, that's common sense. But taking that into consideration and taking my childhood into consideration, the things I learned about the effects of having an alcohol or a parent who suffers from addiction as, a parent or as a caretaker, it has a lot of effect on the brain of a child and their growing process and the way they function when they grow up. So a person who may have experienced addiction in a household growing up may suffer from codependency and self-love in ways others don't, in ways that maybe somebody who just had a different type of trauma, like, say just a parent passing, it's not just, but you know what I mean, a parent passing or a dog passing or a traumatic experience in their lifestyle, but it didn't have to do with the people who raised them. It's a little bit of a different context. They fall hand in hand, but it's a little bit deeper. And so that's why I wanted to make this into 2 parts and have part 1 talk about codependency and self-love deficit disorder in the way Ross Rosenberg put it into perspective, and how I kind of put it into perspective, how attachment trauma is what is the core issue here with self-love deficiency disorder, but that is not the only thing that can cause self-love deficiency disorder. So say you didn't experience attachment trauma, but you did experience another type of trauma. That's what I want to talk about in part 2, and it is going to be a little bit more personal, and it is going to be a little bit more emotional, I would say, than this episode. So with that being said, that's what I would like to talk about in part 2. And one of the key things, maybe if you wanted to do a little bit more research before, so there's a page called Children of Alcoholics, and I would really, really recommend looking into it. I feel like educating one's self on a whole lot of things is very, very powerful. And learning the information I learned about codependency, self-love deficit disorder, and what it is like to have an alcoholic parent or a parent with addiction, and how that can also affect the way we work in our relationships today. I feel like scratching the surface with a lot of those services can really open our eyes to stepping outside of our comfort zone and understanding why we still may be stuck inside of our comfort zone. We may have had a narcissistic parent, we may have had an alcoholic or an addictive parent, and that is what I would like to talk about in part 2. So I really hope this went well. My camera died, so I was like, I'm not going to give up today. I want to get this out. I'm not going to have it out until tomorrow, but that's okay. I wanted to put this over a makeup tutorial and see how you guys liked it. And then I will record part 2 after hearing what you guys think, and also let me know if that is a topic you guys would like me to talk about. I double-checked with you guys in part 2 if you guys would like to talk about codependency, so now I would like to double-check with you if it would be okay to talk about suffering from addiction as a child in the household. So let me know your guys' thoughts, and I really, really hope this helped. Yes, okay. All right, bye guys.